The judge's verdict, a tale of deception and justice. In the quiet suburban streets of Willow Creek, where mailboxes bore the names of families who'd lived there for decades, a storm was brewing, one that would expose a web of lies and test the bonds of a community. Margaret Hensley, a polished woman with a clipboard and a smile too perfect to trust, had swept into town claiming to lead the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. She promised a dream: free home upgrades funded by a federal grant, transforming modest properties into showcases of accessibility and beauty. For Daniel, a 22-year-old with a disability who tended his garden with quiet pride, her offer seemed like a blessing. Little did he know, Margaret's charm hid a sinister scheme, one that would unravel in a courtroom presided over by the one person she never expected: Daniel's father, Supreme Court Justice Robert Callahan. Daniel's small ranch house sat on a corner lot in Willow Creek, its flower beds a testament to his patience and love for simple beauty. At 22, he'd faced challenges most couldn't imagine, his disability shaping his life, but never his spirit. Neighbors waved as they passed, their kids pedaling bikes under the shade of oak trees. It was the kind of place where trust was as common as front porch chats, which made Margaret's arrival all the more disarming. She knocked on Daniel's door one crisp March morning, her silver SUV parked in his driveway, adorned with magnetic signs reading Willow Creek Community Enhancement Program. Her navy blazer and leather portfolio screamed authority, her smile warm as she introduced herself as the HOA president. Daniel, hands still earthy from planting tulip bulbs, listened as she pitched a grant-funded project to boost property values with accessibility ramps and professional landscaping, at no cost to homeowners. The documents she presented looked official, complete with letterhead from the Regional Accessibility Initiative and a signed endorsement from Town Councilman Edward Brooks. Convinced by her confidence and the promise of a better home, Daniel signed the agreement, unaware of the trap being set. Within days, crews descended on his property, transforming his modest yard into a magazine-worthy display of stone pathways and vibrant garden beds. Neighbors marveled, some with envy, wondering why their homes hadn't been chosen. But as weeks passed, cracks appeared in Margaret's facade. Workers dodged questions about permits, and Margaret's once friendly demeanor turned curt when Daniel pressed for details. Worse, longtime residents like Evelyn Harper, a retired librarian who'd lived in Willow Creek for 30 years, insisted no HOA had ever existed. When Daniel contacted Brooks' office, he learned there was no record of any grant program. A chilling realization hit: he'd been duped. Meanwhile, across town, Justice Robert Callahan sat in his study, surrounded by legal briefs, unaware that his son was at the heart of a brewing scandal. As a Supreme Court justice, Robert had spent decades upholding the law with unwavering impartiality. But when Daniel called one night, his voice trembling with fear over a community meeting where Margaret had branded him a fraud, Robert's world shifted. Margaret had rallied neighbors, claiming Daniel had manipulated the grant to secure $25,000 in unauthorized upgrades. The community, swayed by her polished presentation and Brooks' apparent endorsement, voted to demand repayment, threatening to seize Daniel's home. The courtroom was packed on the morning of July 15th, the air thick with anticipation. Residents of Willow Creek and nearby towns filled the gallery, drawn by whispers of a dramatic showdown. Margaret strode in with her attorney, Victor Ramsey, both radiating confidence. Victor's tailored suit and briefcase lent an air of legitimacy, while Margaret's professional demeanor masked the lies she'd woven. Edward Brooks sat in the front row, his counsel badge gleaming, nodding as if to affirm their cause. Local reporters, tipped off anonymously, scribbled notes, sensing a story that would ripple far beyond Willow Creek. Victor's opening was a masterclass in theatrics, his PowerPoint flashing invoices and contracts that painted Daniel as a scheming opportunist who'd exploited his disability for lavish upgrades. The documents, stamped with official-looking seals, seemed airtight to the untrained eye. Margaret followed, her voice dripping with feigned regret as she described discovering Daniel's fraud. She presented letters from supposed federal agencies, demanding restitution for misused funds. The crowd murmured, some casting accusing glances at Daniel, who sat pale and silent, fighting back tears. But Robert, seated at the bench in his black robes, saw through the charade. As a justice, he'd encountered countless legal maneuvers, but this was personal. His heart ached for Daniel, yet his duty demanded impartiality. He began questioning Margaret's documents, his tone calm but piercing. "Ms. Hensley, can you verify the authorization codes on these grant letters?" he asked, his eyes locking onto hers. Margaret faltered, her answers vague. Robert pressed further, citing federal procedures she couldn't possibly know. The room grew tense as her confidence wavered. Behind the scenes, Robert's court clerk, Susan Mitchell, had been pivotal. Her discreet inquiries revealed that the Regional Accessibility Initiative was a fiction, its letterheads forged. The codes Margaret cited didn't exist in any federal database. Susan's real-time verification, delivered during the hearing, was a bombshell. Every document was a lie, crafted to deceive. The gallery buzzed as neighbors realized they'd been manipulated. Then came Margaret's fatal misstep. Sensing the tide turning, she stood, pointing at Robert. "This trial is a sham," she declared. "The judge is biased. Daniel is his son." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. She expected Robert to recuse himself, derailing the case. Instead, Robert leaned forward, his voice steady. "You're correct, Ms. Hensley. Daniel is my son. And your decision to commit federal crimes in my courtroom, targeting my family, is a mistake you'll regret." The admission stunned the room, but Robert's next words sealed Margaret's fate. "Your forgeries violate multiple federal statutes. Your scheme ends here." Victor's objections grew frantic, but they only highlighted his desperation. Susan's evidence, combined with testimony from Laura Martinez, a neighbor who'd faced similar demands from Margaret, exposed a pattern of fraud spanning 6 communities. Laura's manila folder, filled with forged contracts and fake endorsements, revealed Margaret's network had swindled $340,000 from vulnerable homeowners, disabled, elderly, and immigrant families targeted for their trust. James Carter, a quiet neighbor who'd overheard Margaret and Brooks plotting in a parked car, delivered the final blow. His testimony about their plans to keep pressure on Daniel and forged signatures confirmed a criminal conspiracy. Brooks, attempting to slip out, was detained by marshals. The courtroom erupted as Margaret and Brooks were handcuffed, their polished facades crumbling. Margaret's wild claims of a government cover-up only cemented her guilt, her voice shrill as she was led away. The aftermath was swift and satisfying. Federal investigators traced Margaret's illicit funds to offshore accounts, recovering every dollar for her victims. Laura received her $18,000 back, tears streaming as she hugged Daniel outside the courthouse. Willow Creek, once divided, rallied around Daniel. James was elected president of a new, legitimate residents association, which launched a fund to help families facing financial hardship or needing accessibility upgrades. Daniel's garden, once a symbol of deception, became a gathering place where neighbors rebuilt trust over coffee and shared stories. Margaret and Brooks faced justice. She was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison, ordered to pay full restitution. Brooks received 8 years and a lifetime ban from public office. Their convictions sent ripples beyond Willow Creek, dismantling similar scams across 3 states. Robert's role was scrutinized but upheld by a judicial review board, praised as a model of how expertise can expose fraud without compromising ethics. As Daniel walked his therapy dog through Willow Creek, children laughed, petting the pup, while neighbors waved warmly. The community, scarred by betrayal, emerged stronger, bound by a shared commitment to protect their own. Robert, reflecting in his study, knew justice had prevailed, not just for his son, but for every family Margaret had targeted. The legal system, tested by lies, had proven its strength when guided by truth. What do you think about the power of justice to overcome deception? Have you ever witnessed or experienced fraud or injustice in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on standing against predators who exploit trust. Your voice matters in the fight for fairness.